what I'm going to do today is do a quick sort of fentanyl 101, homelessness 101, sort of how did we get into this mess, and most importantly, what do we do about solutions? I want to talk about the lawsuit that everyone else in the country is using, named after you, but apparently you're not using in your own city. So, you know, that was mind-boggling, so we'll talk about that. Most people first don't understand how dangerous fentanyl is, so let's talk about that and then talk about some of the numbers. 2 to 3 grains of salt or fentanyl will kill any one person. 1 grain of rice will kill 15 people. And so you can't taste it, you can't smell it, and in some cases you can't see it, especially with fentanyl dust left behind. And so we have never seen a drug this dangerous. It's a synthetic opioid, meaning it's made in the laboratory, and it's 100 times more powerful than morphine. And so that's not 100 points, that's not 10%, that's 10,000% more powerful than morphine. And fentanyl was originally created as a sort of for heart surgery. That was the real, in 1959, the medical side of fentanyl. And without fentanyl, you probably could not have open heart surgery, because we had so many people when open heart surgery just die of shock on the table. So medical fentanyl, when properly used, has a real purpose. And what fentanyl does, and it's perfect for heart surgery because it lowers your heart rate down to almost nothing, and it paralyzes your lungs for breathing. So it basically paralyzes your chest cavity. And so it's perfect for heart surgery. But when used incorrectly, it paralyzes, you know, when an addict uses it, or a child's poisoned with it, or a first responder comes in contact with it, it paralyzes your chest cavity. So your heart rate goes down, your breathing goes down. That's why you always know a fentanyl addict, because they're slumped over. And it's amazing, they're slumped over, unconscious, but they don't fall. And then they fall when they die. You know, when literally the heart rate goes down and lose your flow. To give you an idea of how the death rate is skyrocketed, in the last 4.5 years or so, more people have died in fentanyl than all American men and women in service to our country in the 7 uniformed services, so Marine, Army, Navy, Air Force, Merchant Marine, etc., plus the intelligence agencies for the last 100 years. So if you go World War II, Afghanistan, Iraq, Korea, Vietnam, Global War on Terror, Gulf War I, Gulf War II, Kosovo, and a few other UN actions, add all that up, more people have died of fentanyl in the United States than 100 years war for 4.5 years of fentanyl. And in the beginning, the deaths were mostly addiction, you know, people who were addicted to fentanyl. And that was the initial wave. But now we have first responders dying because they come out and they come in contact with fentanyl. The scariest to me of all is fentanyl is the fastest growing cause of death for children 0 to 4 in America. Think about that. These are not addicts. They're not calling up their dealer and saying, you know, set me up, fix me. These are children coming in contact with dust. Sometimes it's in park benches. Sometimes it's in restaurants. Sometimes it's somebody in the house. Because remember, 2 grains of salt, it's dust. And if you put a hamburger down or a sandwich down or a straw down and pick it up, that's enough to kill you, especially a child. Basically, for most children, 1 grain equivalent of fentanyl would kill you. And so this is no longer about addiction. That's certainly a big part of it, but it's also about the poisoning and the accidental contact because it's so prevalent. There's a lot of people who say, you know, I can smoke weed, I can do a cigarette, I can vape. All 3 of those now are being contaminated with fentanyl. DEA thinks 70% now of all illicit drugs in America, all illicit drugs, are contaminated with fentanyl now. And that's right now, every first responder in America is carrying Narcan, for themselves and for their partner, because if you just accidentally come across it, and it happens so fast, in 20 seconds it absorbs in your system. Citizens can rise up and overturn legislature, and in California, if you can do it in California, you can do it in any of the other states in America. You absolutely can. So we have to recriminalize that. And last, and this is the one that I think the conservatives don't do as well on, is the Dems on. And I know a lot of people don't like talking about it, but I think you have to talk about it, is why is it United States is 4% of the 4.25% of the world population. We're consuming 38% of the fentanyl worldwide, and we're 66% of the worldwide deaths of fentanyl. Wow. 4% population, 38% consumption, 66% of reported deaths. So let me go over and do Homelessness 101. Homelessness 101, pre-2013, most people aren't aware, homeless in America had been slowly decreasing. Not like deep cuts, but 2 or 3% a year. It was going down. Pre-2013, every federal dollar that went to housing for homeless required treatment and recovery and job training. So if you got a benefit because we were going to help you in homelessness, you had to meet with case managers, go to substance use classes, deal with your untreated mental illness. You had to go to job training. We wanted you to develop self-sufficiency. And that was up through 2013. And homelessness it wasn't perfect back then by any means, but it was nothing like we've seen now. I mean, we're now, street-level homeless in America is doubling every 4 years on an average in the country. Some parts of the country, especially the West Coast, Chicago, Atlanta, and New York, are doubling every 3 years. Seattle is doubling every 2.8 years. Now, and what happened was under the President Obama administration, his second administration, and I think it was an absolute strategic decision on their part. They waited for the midterm, his middle election, and within that, like within 1 month, they changed the rules. And the rules changed, and there were a lot of technical things, but the first one was, we're going to give housing vouchers away, but we're no longer going to require treatment. We're going to no longer require job training. And if you're a nonprofit or a faith community, you can't do that. It will be illegal to do so. So they told the faith community, who's been the leader inside of homeless recovery and treatment for over 100 years, they told them, you don't know how you do it. We, the federal government, who only got into this business the last 25 years, we know better, and we're going to tell you, you can't require treatment recovery. You can't make them meet with the case manager. You can't make them do anything. We're just going to give them free stuff. We can't say that's good. We can't, that's not, and by the way, this is one of those issues, it's not good for your community. It's not good for the people experiencing homelessness. It's the same answer. And there's a tendency to the left, to be honest, who goes, all you want to do is clean up your streets and stuff. You know what? That's important. We need property value. We need to be able to have business. We need to have people not be accosted. That's true. But we also want I think if we really love that community, we love you too much to let you stay that way. And we're going to do everything we can not to let you stay that way. It's the same answer, whether you come from the right or left. It should be the common sense middle that answers this. And so what we knew was when we stopped requiring treatment, we were going down, and we stopped requiring treatment, we stopped requiring job training, we stopped requiring self-sufficiency. 2013, it just takes off. You can look at every graph. You can look at Oregon graph, your local graphs, your national graphs. It just takes off. And so if you want to solve this, we got to make any help we provide faith-friendly. You can't tell the faith community that had 75% of the beds, you don't know what you're doing and you should get out of that. We should be thanking the faith community for helping us. And by the way, they do a much better job of it than the federal government or county government or state. So we should be embracing the faith community to ask for their help and support their help, and not telling them, you don't know what you're doing, and if you want to take money from us, you got to get rid of all your crosses and crucifix and Star of Davids and whatever, and you can't do this and can't do that. And we should be thanking faith community, not making it so hard they can't help and can't do it. I just think this is just on its head, just insane. The other is, if a person has untreated mental illness, we need to do everything to help, because we want you to be a taxpayer, not a tax receiver. We want you to move from being subsidized to paying. That's good for you, but it's also good for our community. It's good for our collective. So we need to have treatment requirements. We need to have substance use required classes if you have a substance use disorder. In the last 25 years, the woke side has made it so easy to get high in America and so hard to get treatment. We need to flip it on its head and focus on getting treatment, easy to get treatment and hard to get high. And if you're anywhere, you're one of the 3 worst states in America on this concept. You know, I can't tell you how many legislators I've talked to in Salem and other places. All they want to do is make it easy to get high and make the clean supply. You can't make fentanyl safe. I've heard a lot about your sheriff today. I've heard a lot about your police chief in the morning about how scared they are to get sued, so they won't do anything right, which gets me to, you're named at, you have the most important ever homelessness/fentanyl case ever in the history of America, named after you. The rest of the country is using this case to clean up their cities. The rest of the country is leaning in on this. And how you don't use it, and you were the ones who did the case, is just mind-boggling. And Kathleen and I were talking earlier, you should be leaning into it. And if you're ever only going to want to read one case, go read the case named after you all. It's about 78 pages. I was a subject matter expert. We were trying to shop. We were trying to get different cases. And then this one came out of clear blue. Will you get sued? Yeah. I don't care if you get sued. I care if you lose. Don't lose. Because if you lose, it's a lot of money, and you go backwards. So if you follow the guidelines that's prescribed, you're going to get sued. You're in Oregon. I mean, come on. Either you got to move or get tough and get used to getting sued. But that doesn't mean you're going to lose the case. The United States Supreme Court case trumps every law in the land that we had ever known. I really think it's important to be compassionate while we do this, because it's the right thing. To me, I'm a person of faith, so I lead by faith. The transformational center I set up is all faith-based. It's very designed after a Max Lucado sermon series. And we're getting about 70% completion rate to some sort of level of self-sustainability afterwards. It's not perfect, but 70%. San Antonio has had an 85% reduction of downtown homeless now for 15 years. So our number 15 years ago, we're not perfect, but we're way, way better than we were. And we're way better than Austin, that's tripled, who totally did the opposite. We leaned into treatment and recovery. They leaned into harm reduction, which is to let you do your drugs and do this and go under the bridge and such. When you think about your community of homelessness in your community, it's very important to understand you have to treat out-of-towners and in-towners clinically different. And if there's only one thing a city should do, you should know exactly who your in-town and out-of-town people are. Your out-of-town people, don't make them in-towners. Don't welcome them. Don't give all the goodies and say, come in and live here. Yeah. If you're an out-of-towner, you should go back home. Now, if it's domestic violence, do not do that. That's a real important exception. Domestic violence could be a death penalty going home. But that's a small, small, small part of this. And what happens is HUD does a thing called the point-in-time count that got sped up by Governor Cuomo way back when under the Clinton administration. And it defines local. Here's how they asked the local question. They said, the night before you're being interviewed, or the night before you became homeless, what city were you living in? Well, yesterday I was at the Greyhound station, or I was hitchhiking in, or I was out on the edge of the city, and so that says you're homegrown. So all these, if the HUD number artificially sets it up to make it homegrown. Now, I've been to a lot of events. You know, you go into politics, and so you have the, you know, the small talk. Does anybody say, where did you live last night? They ask, where did you go to high school? Is your family from here? How long have you lived in town? And so I use for the definition of in town is, did you go to high school in your community? Did you go to Grants Pass High? That's easy. Every yearbook's public, you know, so if you tell me you're from here, we can go up and check it. It's really simple to confirm. Did you have a mortgage or an apartment rent over 2 years ago? You can go online and find most of that. Do you have family living or passed on deceased? You can also find that pretty easily. Where were you born? And if somebody's born in Grants Pass, went to high school here, has family here, they're from here. If you are from Montana and you never have no family here and you came here because I heard it was very nice to be homeless in Grants Pass, and they all have phones, so everybody talks to each other, come to Grants Pass, they won't do anything to you, and they'll give you a bunch of goodies. Where are you going to want to be, Montana or in Grants Pass? And so how you treat your out-of-towner, and even SAMHSA, which is the Federal Mental Health Authority, even SAMHSA says the best place to get treatment and recovery is where your home system is, where your family is, where your home is, where your network is, where you understand. That then frees up your resources to take care of somebody who went to high school here and such. And the federal court says you can do that now. And if anybody says you can't, said that don't do it or you don't want to lean into it, you absolutely, when a person comes to your version of a food bank or food pantry, if you're an out-of-towner, you get a 3-day bag. If you're in-towner, we're going to give you treatment, meet with case manager, we're going to give you a 30-day bag, and we're going to put you into life skill classes, training. Your mission here, and this came up in the Supreme Court, and I was there for the Supreme Court. I've been involved with last 15 years of trying to find a case to overturn Boise versus Martin, and before that, Pottinger versus Miami. And in the case, one of the critical parts was your mission has empty beds here. And the people on the street are not wanting to go in. If I was police chief or sheriff, this is how the conversation goes. Hello, we love you so much, we're not going to let you stay here anymore. Do you want us, where are you from? You know, go through that. If you're from out of town, we're going to do everything to get you back home. We're going to call your family. We're going to call a rescue mission there, Salvation Army. We're going to do everything to get there. You're in town, we're taking you either, you got 2 choices, jail or the rescue mission. Which do you want? It's that simple. And it's literally that simple. Don't make it easy to be homeless. Don't enable homelessness. Compassion without accountability is enablement. Compassion without accountability is enablement. You can't, if you just do hollow compassion and give stuff away and goodies away, you're going to increase your homelessness. If you do, I'm going to help you if you want to help yourself, or you're going to jail, that's okay. I mean, they're making that choice. We're not being mean people. You're choosing to go to jail. Hope you don't go to jail, but, or has he already been to jail? Let's check the background.